It's 2 a.m. The house is silent, but inside the mind it's like a highway at rush hour. Cars speeding by, horns blaring, no red lights. Thoughts about work, family, mistakes from the past, plans for tomorrow. The body is lying in bed, but the mind refuses to rest. Have you ever felt that way? Like no matter how hard you try, your thoughts won't stop? It's exhausting. It feels like carrying a heavy backpack all day long, even though you never meant to put it on. Here's the strange part. Most of those thoughts aren't even useful. Some help you remember your keys or plan a meeting, sure, but most of the noise? It's just mental echoes, worries, what-ifs, replaying mistakes that can't be undone. And while your body is here, your mind is lost somewhere else. Buddhism has a way of describing this. It calls it the second arrow. The first arrow is life itself, the natural pain we all face, like loss, sickness, or disappointment. But the second arrow? That's the one we fire at ourselves. It's the endless cycle of, why me? This isn't fair. I can't stop thinking about it. That second arrow is what truly keeps us stuck in suffering. Science agrees, by the way. Our brain has something called the default mode network. Think of it like a radio that never stops playing, constantly replaying the past and worrying about the future. That's why silence feels so uncomfortable. We're addicted to thinking, even when it hurts us. But here's where the story takes a turn. What if peace isn't about forcing the mind to stop, but about stepping back and watching those thoughts, the way you'd watch clouds drift across the sky? What if your thoughts are not who you are, but just visitors passing through? This is where Buddhism's wisdom comes alive. Because when thinking slows down even for a moment, something remarkable begins to happen. And in today's video, we'll explore not just why this matters, but also the surprising gift that awaits when you stop letting thoughts control your life. And trust me, there's a very special lesson waiting for you at the end of this video, one that might just change how you see yourself forever. Before we dive deeper, I want to invite you to do something simple. If this message already touches your heart, consider hitting subscribe, leaving a like, or even sharing it with someone you care about. It's a small act, but it helps spread these teachings to more people, and that's the greatest gift this channel, Buddha Wisdom, could ever receive from you. Now, let's begin our journey into the silence beyond thought. 1. The burden of endless thinking. There's a man I once knew, let's call him Daniel. Every morning, before the sun even touched the blinds, his mind was already awake. Not his body, his mind. It would race through the to-do list, replay yesterday's mistakes, and leap into worries about tomorrow. By the time he poured his first cup of coffee, Daniel was already exhausted. Not because he had worked, but because he had thought too much. Maybe you know this feeling. It's like carrying a heavy backpack all day long, one you never chose to wear. Inside that backpack, thoughts. Some are useful, don't forget your keys, call your sister, pay the bills. But most of them, just noise. Why did I say that at work? What if I fail? What will people think of me? And that noise never stops. It follows you into the car, into meetings, even into the quiet moments when all you want is peace. Buddhism has a story for this. The Buddha once said, imagine being struck by an arrow. That first arrow is life's pain, things we cannot avoid, sickness, loss, disappointment. But then, without realizing it, we pick up a second arrow and stab ourselves again. That second arrow is the suffering we create by replaying, by clinging, by refusing to let go. And it's the second arrow that truly wears us down. Think about it. The argument is over, but we keep replaying it. The mistake is done, but we keep punishing ourselves for it. The future hasn't arrived, but we keep worrying about it anyway. That's the second arrow, and it makes life feel heavier than it needs to be. Science gives this weight a name: the default mode network. It's like a radio that never turns off, constantly playing stories of the past and fears of the future. This is why silence feels uncomfortable. We've been conditioned to think endlessly, even when thinking no longer serves us. But here's the paradox. We believe that more thinking will solve our problems. In reality, it often deepens them. Like being trapped in quicksand, the more you struggle, the deeper you sink. I'll be honest, this was me too. I remember nights lying in bed, my body desperate for rest, but my mind spinning like a broken record. Every what if, every regret, every unfinished task, looping endlessly. And the harder I tried to stop thinking, the louder my mind became. The turning point came when I learned what the Buddha really meant by letting go. It's not about forcing the mind to stop. It's about realizing you don't need to pick up that second arrow. The thought comes. You notice it. You don't have to fight it, and you don't have to believe it. That simple shift, seeing thoughts like clouds drifting across the sky, was life-changing. Because the moment you see them as passing, you stop carrying them, and the backpack begins to feel lighter. So here's the reflection. Suffering isn't only what life gives us. It's also what we add on top of it. And when we learn to let go of that second arrow, life doesn't feel quite so heavy anymore. In the next part, we'll explore what happens when the mind truly begins to slow down, when the endless chatter fades, and a new kind of clarity emerges. And trust me, this is where the journey starts to get beautiful. 2. The stillness of the mind. Imagine this. A woman named Sarah sits in her living room late at night. The house is quiet, yet inside her head it feels like rush hour traffic. Thoughts speed by, one after another, bills to pay, conversations she wishes she had handled better, fears about tomorrow. She feels trapped inside the noise of her own mind. Then something happens. In a rare moment, as she closes her eyes and simply breathes, the noise begins to fade. Not all at once, but little by little, as if someone slowly turned down the volume on a radio. And for the first time in weeks, she feels an unfamiliar sensation lightness. The heavy backpack of her thoughts slips off her shoulders. This is the power of mental stillness. Buddhism teaches us that when the waves of thinking settle, the mind becomes like a clear, calm lake. It reflects the world as it is, without distortion, without judgment. And in that clarity, we rediscover a part of ourselves that is often hidden beneath layers of worry and planning. Think about it. When was the last time you looked at a tree, or listened to a bird, or watched the sunset without labeling, comparing, or analyzing? Most of the time, we don't actually see life. We only see our thoughts about life. But when the mind is quiet, the world feels new. The Japanese Zen masters call this shoshin, or beginner's mind. It is the freshness of seeing reality as if for the very first time. Like a child discovering the sparkle of dew on the grass, or the mystery of stars scattered across the night sky. Sarah noticed this shift the next morning. Walking outside, she no longer saw just another ordinary day. She saw light dancing on leaves. She heard the laughter of children echoing down the street. Life, in its simplicity, felt extraordinary. This stillness is not about escaping the world. It's about finally arriving in it. The Buddha often reminded his followers that peace is not found in running away from life, but in meeting it directly without the filter of restless thoughts. He once said, "A mind unshaken by the storms of life, this is the greatest happiness." And science agrees. Modern neuroscience shows that when our minds enter states of calm, areas of the brain associated with stress shrink in activity, while regions linked to compassion and clarity grow stronger. Silence, it seems, is not emptiness. it's medicine. Of course, stillness doesn't mean thoughts will vanish forever. Even the most seasoned monks have wandering minds. The key is not to fight the thoughts, but to let them pass, like clouds drifting across a vast blue sky. You notice them, you let them move on, and you return to the quiet space underneath. That space is always there. It has always been there. We just forget to visit it. When Sarah tasted that stillness, she realized something profound. She didn't need to control every thought to feel peace. She only needed to stop feeding them. Like a fire without fuel, the mind's noise faded, leaving only warmth and clarity. And here's the beautiful part. This stillness isn't reserved for monks in monasteries or people living far from society. It's available to you, right here, right now, in the middle of your everyday life. Take one mindful breath. Pause between tasks. Feel the weight of your body sitting on the chair. Notice the stillness behind the noise. That is your beginner's mind. That is your doorway back to wonder. And maybe, just maybe, when we rediscover this quiet, we also rediscover life itself. 3. The dissolving of the self. Picture this. A man named David sits quietly on his porch as the sun sets. For years, his mind has been filled with thoughts of who he should be. A successful businessman. A father who never fails. A man respected by everyone around him. But in chasing this image, David has lived like a prisoner inside his own identity. Every mistake felt like a crack in the mask he wore. Every achievement felt like it wasn't enough. He carried the burden of constantly proving his existence through comparison. Then something shifts. In the stillness of meditation, as his thoughts begin to slow, something unexpected happens. The idea of me, that constant inner narrator, begins to soften. The pressure to define himself, to defend himself, to compare himself, dissolves like mist in the morning Sunday. And for the first time, David feels free. This is the moment when the self begins to fade. Buddhism calls it the loosening of attachment to the ego, the I we hold so tightly. It's not that David disappears. It's that he realizes he was never just this name, this role, this fragile identity. He is part of something far bigger, a flow of life that includes every living being. Think about how much of our suffering comes from protecting this idea of me. We compare our lives to others. We defend our opinions as if they were our very skin. We cling to praise and feel crushed by criticism. The Buddha described this as grasping at a self that is ultimately an illusion. When the grip loosens, something beautiful arises. We don't feel separate anymore. We feel connected. David noticed it in the smallest things. The sound of the wind rustling the trees felt like it belonged to him, not as a possession, but as a shared heartbeat. The smile of a stranger on the street wasn't a threat or a judgment. It was a mirror of his own humanity. He realized that when the self grows quiet, love grows loud. The Buddha once said, "In seeing the emptiness of self, compassion naturally arises." Because when the walls of ego dissolve, what's left is not nothingness, it's openness. It's the space where empathy, kindness, and deep connection can bloom. And this isn't just philosophy. Modern psychology confirms it. When we loosen the constant obsession with self-image, our anxiety decreases, our relationships deepen, and our sense of meaning expands. The less we obsess over who am I compared to others, the more we can finally live. But here's the challenge. The ego doesn't like to let go. It clings. It resists. It whispers, "Without me, who will you be?" And yet the answer is simple. Without the prison of self, you become vast. You become life itself. For David, This realization wasn't just peaceful, it was liberating. He no longer needed to be perfect. He no longer needed to win every battle. He could simply be. And in that being, he discovered a truth that had always been there. Happiness is not in building a stronger self, but in dissolving the walls that separate us from the world. The Buddha compared the ego to a mirage. It looks solid from a distance, but the closer you walk toward it, the more it disappears. And what you find instead is the cool water of freedom. So ask yourself, what would your life feel like if the endless comparisons, the constant need to prove, the fear of judgment, simply faded? Who would you be if you no longer had to protect an image of yourself? That is the doorway Buddhism invites us to step through. The doorway where suffering lessens, because the grip of the self loosens. Where connection deepens because the walls of separation fall away. Where love flows, because the I no longer stands in the way. And perhaps, like David, you'll realize the moment the self dissolves, life begins to truly shine. 4. Balancing thought and stillness. Picture Emma, a young professional working in a busy city. Her days are filled with endless meetings, emails, deadlines. Her mind is always on, juggling problems, planning ahead, replaying yesterday's mistakes. She's exhausted, yet when she finally lies down at night, her thoughts refuse to stop. For a long time, Emma believed her mind was the enemy. She thought, if only I could silence these thoughts forever, then I'd find peace. But the more she resisted, the louder they became. Then one evening, she stumbled upon a Buddhist teaching about the middle way. It struck her deeply. Thoughts are not the enemy. They are tools. The problem is not thinking, it's becoming enslaved by thinking. This realization changed everything. The Buddha compared wisdom to walking a tightrope, not too rigid, not too loose. In the same way, the art of living is knowing when to think and when to let the mind rest. It's like a musician who doesn't just play endless notes. She pauses, creating space, allowing silence to give meaning to the music. Without silence, the melody becomes noise. Without thought, there is no song at all. Think about your own life. There are moments when thinking is essential. Solving problems at work, planning a family trip, learning a new skill. Thoughts, when used wisely, are like a skilled servant. They help us navigate the world. But when the servant becomes the master, we suffer. Our thoughts drag us into endless stories, worries, and comparisons. We lose touch with the present. Emma began to practice this balance in simple ways. At work, she gave her full attention to thinking, solving problems, strategizing, making decisions. But when she left the office, she practiced letting go. She would take a slow walk home, noticing her breath, the rhythm of her steps, the colors of the sky. For the first time, she realized she didn't need to think every second of the day. And something surprising happened. The more she allowed silence, the clearer her thoughts became when she needed them. Her creativity improved. Her decisions grew sharper. She wasn't drowning in noise anymore, she was choosing her notes, like a musician shaping a beautiful song. This is the wisdom of balance. The Buddha often reminded us, the mind is like a tool. A knife can prepare a nourishing meal, but in careless hands, it can wound. Thoughts are the same. Used with awareness, they bring clarity. Clung to without awareness, they bring suffering. Emma discovered that she didn't need to suppress her thoughts. She only needed to learn the rhythm between thinking and stillness, between sound and silence, between action and rest. This balance is what Buddhism calls wisdom. It's not about choosing one extreme over the other. It's about harmony, And science echoes this truth. Research shows that people who integrate mindfulness with intentional thinking are not only calmer, but also more effective in their work and relationships. It's the pause, the breath, the space between thoughts that gives rise to insight. Imagine if your life could feel like that kind of music. Not a chaotic storm of noise, not an empty silence, but a harmony where each note, each pause, each breath has its place. The next time you find yourself overwhelmed by your own mind, remember this: thoughts are not your enemy. They are instruments, but you are the musician. And with wisdom, you can create a life that is not just noise, but a masterpiece. 5. What happens if thoughts completely stop? There's a story I want to share with you. Years ago, I met a man who had been practicing meditation for more than 20 years. Let's call him Daniel. On the outside, he looked like any ordinary person: jeans, sneakers, a soft smile. But when you sat with him, you felt something different. There was a silence around him, a presence. It was as if his very being was at ease, even when the world was not. One evening, I asked him what it felt like when the mind finally became still. He paused, and then said quietly, "It's not the silence you hear with your ears. It's the silence inside." It's like the whole storm of thoughts, worries, memories, even the sense of me, just stops. And what's left isn't emptiness, it's freedom. In Buddhism, there is a name for this. It's called Nirodha Samapatti. It's a state so deep that every movement of thought ceases, and even the idea of a separate self dissolves. At first, this might sound frightening, like falling into nothingness. But the truth? It's not nothingness at all. It's the fullness of peace. A peace beyond words, beyond concepts, beyond everything we usually cling to. The Buddha once said, "There is, monks, an unborn, unmade, unconditioned." If there were not, escape from the born, the made, the conditioned would not be possible. This teaching points directly to that silence, to that unconditioned space where suffering cannot touch you. But here's the part we often misunderstand. The goal is not to destroy thought forever. We're not meant to become blank, lifeless beings. Thoughts are tools, just like fire. They can cook your food, or they can burn down your house. The point is not to get rid of fire, but to master it. So when thinking slows down, when you taste that stillness for even a breath, you realize something extraordinary. You are not your thoughts. You don't have to obey them. You can live freely, choosing which thoughts to follow and which to let pass, like clouds in the sky. Daniel once told me, the real gift isn't staying in silence forever. The gift is bringing a piece of that silence back into everyday life, into the way you speak to your children, into how you handle stress at work, into the way you treat yourself when you make a mistake. That's the heart of it. True meditation isn't escaping the world. It's learning how to walk back into the noise without letting it control you. And maybe right now you're wondering, is that even possible for me? I'm not a monk. I don't have years to sit in a cave or a monastery. I get it. But here's the good news. You don't need to. Even one mindful breath, taken in the middle of a busy day, can remind you that silence is always there, waiting beneath the surface. The real question isn't whether thoughts can stop forever. The real question is, can you stop letting them define who you are? Because the moment you realize you are more than your thoughts, that's the moment freedom begins. And in the next part of this journey, I want to show you exactly how that freedom can appear, not in theory, not in distant meditation halls, but right in the middle of your ordinary everyday life. 6. Practicing mindfulness in daily life. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's a single mom with 2 kids, a full-time job, and bills stacked on the kitchen counter. Her days feel like one long sprint packing lunches, answering emails, rushing to meetings, picking up groceries, helping with homework. By the time she collapses into bed, her body is tired, but her mind is still racing. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, Sarah remembered something she had heard in a mindfulness class. Just take one mindful breath. She thought it sounded too simple to make a difference. But she tried anyway. She closed her eyes, inhaled slowly, and exhaled with awareness. And for just that one breath, something shifted. Her problems didn't disappear. The bills were still on the counter. The kids still needed her. But for that brief moment, she felt space inside, a little island of calm in the middle of a storm. This is the heart of mindfulness in everyday life. You don't need to sit cross-legged for hours in a quiet retreat center. You don't need incense or chanting bowls. Peace is not locked away in distant monasteries. It's available in the smallest moments, right here in your ordinary day. The Buddha once said, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." That's mindfulness, not escaping reality, but fully arriving in it. Think about it. How many times do we drive somewhere and barely remember the journey? How often do we eat dinner while scrolling on our phone, hardly tasting the food? We're alive, but not truly living. Mindfulness changes that. It's as simple as noticing the texture of an apple as you bite into it, feeling the warmth of the water while you wash your hands, listening fully when someone speaks, without planning your response. These moments may sound small, but here's the secret. Small moments build a new way of being. Each mindful breath is like a drop of water. Over time, those drops become a river strong enough to carry you through life's difficulties. When Sarah began practicing, she started with just 10 seconds, 1 or 2 mindful breaths while waiting at a red light. Soon, she noticed she was less reactive with her kids. She listened more patiently at work. She didn't snap as quickly when things went wrong. The problems didn't vanish, but her relationship with them changed. She realized peace wasn't about fixing everything outside. It was about transforming the way she met life inside. And that's something you can try right now. Pause. Take a slow breath. Notice the rise and fall of your chest. Watch your thoughts drift by like clouds in the sky. That's it. That's mindfulness in action. You don't need hours. You just need moments. And the more often you touch those moments, the more you'll discover a quiet strength inside you. A strength that has been there all along. So the next time life feels overwhelming, remember Sarah. Remember that one mindful breath can create space, can bring you back to yourself, and can change the entire way you see your day. And this leads us to an even deeper question. If just one breath can create such peace, what happens when mindfulness becomes the way you live, not just something you practice? Summary of key points and reflections. So, let's take a step back and look at the journey we've walked together in this video. We began by seeing how endless thoughts can weigh us down, like carrying a heavy backpack we never take off. The more we cling to those thoughts, the more we suffer. But when the mind begins to quiet, even just a little, the world looks different. We see with clearer eyes, no longer trapped in yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's worries. In that space, there's freedom. We also discovered that the self we protect so fiercely is, in many ways, just a story created by thought. And when we loosen our grip on that story, something amazing happens. We feel a deeper connection to everything around us. We're not as separate as we once believed. The Buddha taught that wisdom isn't about erasing thought, but about balance. Just like a musician knows when to play a note and when to hold silence, true freedom comes when we learn to use thought as a tool without becoming its prisoner. And yes, there are states of complete stillness, where thought and even the sense of I dissolve. But the real treasure is not in chasing silence, it's in living freely, moment by moment, with nothing controlling you. That's where mindfulness in daily life becomes the key. One mindful breath, one mindful step, one mindful glance at the sky. These small practices open the doorway to peace, right where you are. And here's the heart of it all. You are not your thoughts. Thoughts will come and go, but they do not define you. Peace is possible the moment you pause, observe, and gently let go. That is how we live fully in the present. Now, I'd like you to reflect for a moment. Have you ever seen someone you love suffer because they can't stop overthinking? Maybe a friend, maybe even yourself. If this message reminds you of someone, share this video with them. Sometimes a gentle reminder is all we need to find our way back to peace. And if today's words touch something in you, I invite you to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. Which lesson spoke to you most deeply? Your story may inspire someone else who is watching. If you'd like to continue walking this path with us, subscribe to Buddha Wisdom, where we share more teachings that bring both strength and serenity into everyday life. From my heart, thank you for staying until the very end of this video. May you carry with you a little more peace, a little more clarity, and may that ripple out to everyone around you. And remember, even though this video ends here, your journey doesn't. The next breath, the next step, is where your true practice begins.